Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. Do you ever feel anxious? And do you turn to sugar or comfort foods to get that feeling of comfort and to calm you down? Well, if you do, then join the club, because most of us do. And my guest today, Susannah, talks about how she used food for comfort and how now she helps others deal with their anxiety and even their cravings with hypnotherapy. We'll get to our chat in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources about how to get rid of cravings, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. And come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at MyLifeAfterSugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, so I'm here today with Susannah Robbins, and you're out west in California. I'd like to know a little bit about your background, how you grew up in the US with food and sugar especially.
Yeah, first, thank you for having me this morning. I'm excited about this. So I grew up on the East Coast in New York on Long Island, and um, you know, sweets were a very big part of my family's everyday life. Um, my mother would serve us ice cream every single night after dinner. It was just a given. And every weekend she would bake something, bake a cake, bake cookies, a pie. Um, and so, yeah, sugar was just part of our lives and we didn't think about it at all. It was just part of, you eat dinner or you eat dessert. And, none of us were overweight or anything. My family just tends to be tall and lean. And so it didn't affect any of us on a weight, but it definitely it was definitely part of our lives. And it's funny because my mom, if we would go out to dinner somewhere and if we ordered a dessert and you still had yours left and she didn't have hers because she would eat it really quickly, she go she would always joke around and go, "Oh, look over there," and then she'd take a bite of your dessert, and it just really became part of this routine that we would have growing up, that she would always steal a bite of our dessert. Um,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
mom thing to do. I used
yeah,
to do that.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. So I would consider that to be a normal North American upbringing, food-wise. Sugar is a part of daily life and nobody thought about it. And for you, particularly with your sort of family genetics, I guess, you couldn't see that there was a problem because we tend to equate weight gain with a problem and lack of weight gain with, oh, there isn't a problem.
Right, right. I'd say the only person, my dad actually was a little overweight, and he ended up having type 2 diabetes.
Hmm.
Um, but I can't say, oh, it's because he ate dessert with us. My dad had chocolate bars stashed all over the house.
Hmm.
So actually, I hadn't really thought about it before. So he probably even had more of a connection with sugar than the rest of us.
And the fact that he hid these chocolate bars says something, in my opinion, about, that at some level he felt that he had to hide them. Why were they not out in full sight? You know what I mean?
Well, he might have thought we would we would have eaten them, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I never really thought about it.
Mm,
But yeah.
mm.
So
Okay.
mhm.
So you grew up normally, eating normally, and I put the word in air quotes. And then what?
So um, fast forward many, many, many years. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Um, she was in a nursing home, and I was a single mother of twins who were about 10, and I was um, having a hard time sometimes thinking clearly. And I started getting worried because I would go visit my mom, and she was beginning to get to the point where she wouldn't recognize me, and
Mm,
I'd be like, "Oh my God, I do not want to end up like my mom." And
mhm.
I had read somewhere that Alzheimer's is sometimes misdiagnosed Lyme disease. And having grown up on the East Coast, and you know, I've over my lifetime I found multiple ticks on me because I always had dogs and we would hike in the woods and things like that. Um, and I decided to get a Lyme test. And lo and behold, I had Lyme.
Oh,
And so I went to a Lyme doctor to get treated for Lyme disease. And his course of action, because Lyme causes a lot of inflammation in your body and your joints, and my joints were really achy. Um, and I had really bad brain fog. Um, he took me off. He said, okay, well, we're going to go off all grains, all gluten, all sugar to reduce inflammation in your body. And that was just terrifying to me because I did love my sugar.
mm,
And, but I also didn't want to end up like my mom. And so I just went for it. And I can remember how hard it was in the beginning. For the first 2 weeks of being off sugar, I was dreaming about desserts and ice cream. And I would wake up and go, oh my God, this is terrible, that I am so attached to this that I dream about it when I can't have it.
yeah.
Um, So, yeah, so that was probably 12 years ago.
Okay.
And I am, I'd say 99.9% sugar-free now.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So it was
Wow.
a huge shift in my life.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm just curious to know whether, like, from the time when it was suggested to you to cut out sugar, flour, right, grains, and anything else?
Well, it was started with gluten, and then he said, just cut out all grains.
Okay,
So,
fine.
yeah.
From the time it was suggested to the time you actually did it, how long did that take? I'm asking because it took me months of resisting.
Oh no, that was immediate for me
Okay.
because of the consequences, I think. I just was really worried that because I also had been reading, and then people with Lyme can exhibit the same symptoms as people with Alzheimer's eventually.
Mm,
And I just, whatever it was, whether it was Alzheimer's or Lyme's, I just did not want to get there. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen.
okay. Were you aware of the connection between processed grains or grains in general, sugar, and Lyme disease and or Alzheimer's.
So I became more educated about it. Um, I know that grains turn into sugars in your body, and that too much sugar, or yeah, sugar can really affect your brain in a negative way. So I learned a lot. I also then did a 23andMe test,
Hmm.
and in that test, I found out that I do have the gene for Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And so that was another motivation for me because, again, would it be the Lyme or was it going to be the Alzheimer's? Well, I wasn't going to let that gene get turned on because the good thing about it is that you can, well, we think that
Hmm.
you can um, adjust things so that that gene doesn't turn on. And that's my goal. So I started following the Bredesen protocol, which is Dale Bredesen is a doctor who's done just a lot of research into Alzheimer's and has a very specific uh, diet and supplements and things like that. And so my life for a while became very focused on just cleaning up everything because I just was terrified of the possible outcome.
Yeah, yeah, very understandable. So, yeah, and that's a key point of us educating ourselves, which is easier said than done because I don't know if you probably have more knowledge about health and wellness and stuff like that than I certainly had none when I started out. And I didn't know where to look for the info, right?
Hmm.
So it's the info is actually out there, but you've got to know where to look and what to believe and what to question and what to double check, you know? How do
Right. There's
you
just so many different, ways of eating. There's, high carb, low carb, high fat, you know, uh, keto. I don't know. There's just 10 million different ways to eat. And
yeah,
yeah, which one is going to be right for you?
right. And who do you listen to?
Right.
That to know whether you're doing it right, in air quotes, right?
Hmm.
So how did that go down the first few days or the first few weeks when you immediately cut out all grains and sugar, right? How did you feel in the first few days and weeks?
Honestly, it was, it now feels like so long ago that I'm not certain that I could tell you exactly, except for that. I know I felt like I was being denied something. I felt gypped.
Mm,
Um, and especially because, I had two kids that were then, they're still eating everything that they wanted to eat. And they wanted to have pizza, we had pizza, or they'd have, I'd make them French toast on the weekends. I couldn't eat that anymore. And so, yeah, I felt um, like I was missing out. I felt sad. I felt um, kind of like, why me?
aha. What have I done to deserve this?
Yeah, yeah. But, I think, again, I kept holding on to the idea of, okay, having a functioning brain long into my older years is more important than having that piece of, toast with honey on it or having that ice cream after dinner. So
It's
I
what I
kept
call
having to hold on to that.
hold on to that, and it's what I call your big why in my program, right? It's that bigger reason for doing this has to be strong enough to be worth cutting out, toast and honey,
Yes.
amongst other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you replace grains with anything or sugar with anything?
So with sugar, again, because it was 12 years ago, there weren't a lot of obvious options to replace it with, like there are now. And actually, there weren't even a lot of gluten-free, grain-free options back then.
Mm.
And now there's so many. But what did I replace it with? I think I just ate a lot of vegetables and then protein and whatever, like nothing nothing that was satisfying. Nothing that met that comfort need that you get from eating the sugars and the grains.
And so did you feel like you were nourished but not comforted?
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought about it, but yes, because I knew I was eating well, so yes, I'm nourished. But there is something for me that is comfort in, you know, toast or
Yeah,
uh, tea
yeah,
and toast or, that bowl of ice cream or, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, join the club, right? There's millions of us who, let's face it, I mean, it's food is not just fuel, it's not just nutrition. There's a massive emotional side to food. And
yes,
yeah, and I think we have to really recognize that and own it, right? And not like guilt trip ourselves about it. It is what it is. And when you cut that comfort out from your food, you probably are left with some gaping hole
yeah.
emotionally. Where are you going to find that comfort from? So, where did you find that comfort from?
Well, I had a new boyfriend at the time, so maybe from him.
Ah, good one.
Yeah. Um, who's now my partner still 12 years later, but
Okay.
um
Yeah,
yeah,
well done. Yeah.
yeah. So comfort, food-wise, probably cups of tea, herbal tea, but I don't know that I can answer that. I think some of it is just distraction, like, okay, yes, this is what I really want, but what can I do instead?
Mm.
Can I go for a walk because I live in a beautiful area in Northern California? Okay, can I go for a walk because I love being outside and that feeds me in a certain way? Or going and working out at the gym or snuggling with my cat.
Mm.
But, yeah, I don't know what I did as a substitute for food comfort.
It doesn't have to be food, as you mentioned, you can find comfort in other ways. And a lot of people that I help say, well, it's not the same. And I'm like, yeah, it's not necessarily a good thing for it to be the same because the comfort from those types of foods, the starches, the sugars, get most of us into trouble health-wise. If it's not weight, it's other health issues like you were describing for your own family.
Right.
And
Hmm.
so we sort of try and look for the same, but it's the same that, as I said, got us into trouble in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. And very often, like sources of comfort from other things than food or the starches and the sugars are what I call lower highs. And so it's also like we need to get used to lower highs. and not always chasing these dopamine highs all the time. So that's
Right.
quite an adjustment. I don't know whether you remember sort of having that adjustment, whether you were aware of it or not.
Um, I just remember feeling frustrated.
Mm.
Um, and also, going to family events after making this decision. And my sister eventually went on the same path I did, but my brother never has. And his wife loves to cook, and she makes everything with sugar in it. And, well, not everything, but, all the yummy desserts and things. And so initially I would kind of grin and bear it and go, oh, I can't have that. But now I've learned how to substitute things and um, can bring something baked and it's something that I can eat. So,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And so 12 years on, right?
Yeah.
Now tell me what you do for a living in your professional life.
So I'm a hypnotherapist. I actually was certified last year. This is a kind of second career for me. I used to be involved in the film world, and I worked for years in the 90s as a location scout and a location manager for films and things. And then I had my kids, and after they turned 8, I actually became the director of the Film Commission in San Francisco. And I did that up until 2020. And with COVID and everything, there was lots of mandates and things about shots. And I grew up Christian Scientist and I've never been vaccinated, so I needed to not go down that road this time. So I chose to leave. And in my searching, I decided I wanted to help people with hypnotherapy. Um, I have a daughter who was helped a lot with a hypnotherapist in working with anxiety, and I just feel like it's something that I think could be really helpful for people. So I decided to be certified in that. And that's what I
Wow.
do now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's fascinating to make that connection between anxiety and the consumption of sugar, or, and I should say in the plural, really, sugars, because a lot of people think that eating sugary, starchy foods will lessen their anxiety because it gives them comfort. But
Right.
in my experience, with people I've helped and with myself, and maybe your experience, is that actually those foods cover up the anxiety and prevent you from dealing with it.
Yeah, I think that's one case. And I also think that, eating those sugary foods, again, it messes up your gut microbiome. So that in turn feeds your anxiety. So it's kind of a bad circle, or not bad, but a no-win circle,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
totally. And so you got into hypnotherapy, you help people specifically or with anxiety. And I think you've got
I do.
an,
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. And I think you've got a very interesting approach that you mentioned to me, um, with the number 7 in it.
Yes, so seventh path self-hypnosis is something that I teach, and I'm actually getting ready to do a online workshop about it on April 7th. But basically, seventh path is a form of self-hypnosis. And what's beautiful about it is that, you don't have to go to a therapist and kind of spill everything out there and sometimes not feel like you've resolved things. It's all done in the privacy of your own mind. So basically, there are these 9 recognitions in seventh path self-hypnosis, and they're basically, you might call a recognition similar to an affirmation, but they're very specific, and they each work with different things about feeling worthy, feeling lovable, about forgiveness. But what's so amazing about it is that it's this really transformative process where while you're saying these recognitions and you're listening for this kind of response in between saying them again, this response that's coming to you in your own mind, things come up that you very often have no idea you're still holding on to. Things that, it could be from a relationship when you were 15 years old, the first time you got rejected from someone, by
Mm.
someone, or it could be a really traumatic event that happened to you. Um, and things so that you don't realize are affecting you on a day-to-day basis in your life and how you hold yourself, how you interact with people, what your trust is like. And what's so beautiful about this process is that things come up and you can see them, and it just gives you this opportunity to just let it go. It's just this really soft process.
Mm.
And I want to teach the world it. I feel like everybody in the world needs to know this. And I think it could really change people's lives. So,
Yeah. Sounds
yeah,
amazing. Sounds like we could all do with knowing how to do that type of self-hypnosis, because I think everyone, well, I don't want to generalize, but from what I can tell, many, many, many of us suffer to some extent with anxiety on some level. And because we never learned the tools, right, of how to cope with anxiety, we just reach out for sugar. I mean, it's the easiest
right.
thing to do, right? And then we have
Mhm.
to deal with the anxiety of the of the side effects of consuming sugar. But it's my experience has been with the people that I help is when you cut sugar, the things that cause anxiety in your life are all the more in your face because you don't have that screen, right?
Well, you don't have that distraction,
Exactly.
right?
And
Yes.
so it's almost like it's got to get worse before it gets better. You can't really cope or deal with your anxiety until you actually face up to it.
Well, and I think, so often, whether it's sugar or some other thing, alcohol or cigarettes, people turn to them because it's easier than facing what it is that really needs to be faced. It's a distraction. It's a really nice, easy way to distract yourself.
Yeah.
And that's one of the nice things about hypnosis, whether it's self-hypnosis or straight one-on-one hypnosis sessions, is that we can work to find the underlying root cause of what it is that's giving you anxiety and help you work with your subconscious mind to reframe, rewire, uproot old beliefs, sometimes misperceptions,
Mhm.
um, so that, you know, you can rewire the way you are thinking and feeling.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I teach in my program, so I'm doing a program where you have 6 one-on-one hypnosis sessions, but I also teach tools that I've learned along the way because in working with my daughter and trying to, over the years, find things that would help her with anxiety, I've discovered a lot of tools like, EFT tapping. I don't know if you're aware of what that is, but
Yes.
tapping can be helpful for working with an emotion, or Jin Shin finger holding, different finger holds for different emotions that can calm the nervous system. So I'm really excited to share this with people because I feel like between the hypnosis and the tools, I think it's a wonderful kind of toolkit to help people with anxiety.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I am, if anyone is interested, I am giving this free online workshop on Sunday, April 7th on
Yeah.
Zoom.
Well,
And
this
if
this
anyone's
podcast
interested,
episode will be out
oh,
the day after, but I'm
okay.
wondering
Well,
whether you'll be repeating it.
I definitely will be. And if anyone wanted to find out about other workshops, I'll be having them on my Instagram and Facebook, which is Mind Shift Potentials.
Right.
So,
I'll put that
yeah.
link with this recording. But
Okay, great.
I think what's important for people to understand here is that there are alternatives to sugar to deal with our feelings, our emotions, our anxiety, and that B, actually dealing with them is preferable to, right, distracting yourself from them.
Yes. And the other thing which I didn't mention is I have worked with people and on sugar cravings. So, and they've been very successful. This has been probably 8 months now since I worked with my last client who, that's why she came to me. She's like, I just want to get rid of my sugar cravings. I know I eat too much sugar. And I've checked in with her recently. She goes, I'm still sugar free.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
did you
kind of,
use hypnotherapy for that?
I did. And
Amazing.
that was a single session of hypnotherapy. So,
Wow.
um,
Fantastic.
yeah,
All the tools that we can gather to get rid of sugar cravings is, it's great that we can have all that at our fingertips.
yes, yeah, it's a wonderful tool. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing, amazing. So I'm going to put the link to your Instagram along with this recording so people can get in touch with you, either
wonderful.
for your program or for your free workshops, including myself. I'd love to attend.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And do you have any advice for someone who's like in the throes of a craving and or anxiety, something they can do on the spot to kind of calm their cravings down?
So I think that for someone who's maybe feeling anxious because they can't have their sugar, I would start by even just deep breathing, belly breathing, because it brings you back into your parasympathetic state. And so a really simple way of doing that is box breathing. And that is basically you take in a deep breath for the count of 4 and you hold for the count of 4. You exhale through your mouth for the count of 4 and you hold for 4. And if you do a number of cycles of those, say 4 or 5 cycles of that breath work, you can bring yourself back into a calmer state. Because I find that, I don't know, very often if you're having a craving for something, you're getting a little more amped up, right? Like it's like, oh, I really, really want this. I really want this now.
Yeah,
And you're creating a more sympathetic state, which is, your nervous system is getting all energized because you want that thing so badly. So to bring it back into a state of calm, I think is helpful.
yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much. It's so calming to talk to you just generally.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, as I say, any and every hack, it's not really a hack to do hypnotherapy, but any and every bit of help that we can give people to to make their lives craving free and anxious, maybe not free, but with less anxiety is
Yes.
all the better. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
Well, I'm
you.
here to help. I'm very excited and passionate about this work, and I really love that I have a tool that can help people.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks,
Okay.
Susanna.
So nice talking to you.
Me too. Gosh, what an inspiring and gentle, calming conversation with Susannah. And it goes to show that turning to comfort foods is certainly not the only option when we are looking for comfort, which, by the way, is a totally valid human need. And as Susannah shows, there are other ways to reduce your stress level and anxiety and find comfort without resorting to sugar. And look, I definitely get that this is easier said than done. And that's why I created the 90-day program, Freedom from Cravings Formula. It's a program that's specifically designed for women over 50 who want to get rid of cravings and feel more in control around food, especially sugar and comfort foods. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself and be a role model for the next generation, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on the big green button, Schedule a Clarity Call. We'll have a quick 30-minute one-on-one chat to see if the Freedom from Cravings Formula 90-day program is a good fit for you. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.